What's up, Cougar Nation, and welcome again aboard the Hype Train podcast. I'm your host, Joe Wheat. That's at Joe Wheat27 on Twitter. As always, with my boys Hunter Miller and Trevor Levitt, we are presented by Wilner O'Reilly Immigration Law. And I just got to ask you guys one question. Trevor, what is on your head?
This is an homage to Bear Bachmeier and the greatness that he is. Now, I will say, kind of a weird thing happened when I bought this hat. It comes with a little bit of a story. So I bought it on Saturday. It didn't arrive till today. And I only had ordered one thing, and it was this hat. But like dragging behind it was this shirt. And I don't know. It was just clinging on to this bear hat. But it just wouldn't stop. So I got a free shirt with the bear.
I don't even know how to begin to explain that bit for the podcast listeners. Head over to YouTube. We're only a minute in, but head over to YouTube and watch that unfold, because I don't think our explanation will do it justice.
No. Boys, how was your weekend? By the way, I'm just getting it right off the top. Every once in a while, we have a Mom, Please Turn This Off rated episode. This is going to be a Mom, Please Turn It Off rated episode. We'll keep it clean. There will be no swearing. We know we have sensitive people listening to this show. However, boys, we got stuff.
It was a heck of a weekend. Not even talking about the game, just for me, this little square here in the corner, about as perfect of a weekend as you could ask for. Moved into a new house on Thursday. Utah Mammoth hockey won on Friday. Got a text Saturday morning saying, "Hey, I heard you wish you could go to the game. Wish granted." Text. Went to the game. BYU wins. Then on Sunday morning, the New England Patriots win 5-2, first place in the AFC East, no big deal. And then Saturday evening, the Utah Mammoth win again. So sports-wise and just life-wise, I do not think that the weekend could have gone much better.
What have we done to deserve this?
Well, so for 12 years.
When you live right on and off the field, I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, Trevor probably nailed it. For those of us who were strong enough to endure a decade of independence.
What was the saddest thing that you guys have done to deserve this? Because mine is 100% sitting on the front row for every snap of that UMass game in 2017. That's the kind of stuff that when we go to heaven and the pioneers and the saints throughout the generations ask, "What have you done to get here?" I will say that I lived through the independence years of BYU, and a hushed tone will fall over the halls of heaven.
It's like that meme where it's like me in heaven explaining to a 19th century pioneer who used bison chips to warm their rations in the plains of Nebraska how I sat through the BYU-UMass game in 2017.
That is correct.
I actually got this question a week ago, and this sounds arrogant, but the question was what's your Mount Rushmore of terrible, worst sports moments? And I honestly couldn't think of much. I think Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles was on there, and that's when they were okay, so you've had it pretty easy. Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles in the Eastern Conference semifinals following an NBA championship season is the second worst thing I've had to endure. And they were all right, you've had it pretty good.
I don't know. Mac Jones getting laid out after lateraling in a tied ball game to send it to overtime was pretty bad.
The number one thing on my Mount Rushmore of terrible sports moments was just Gerard Mayo. It was just kind of a flat, every all-encompassing Gerard Mayo.
That's fair.
So, but yeah, it's been since I really started to get into sports in 2006, it's been mostly good. I'm fortunate enough to say it's not like I'm an Angels fan or something.
Golly. That was uncalled for. Look, when I was 10 years old, this had been my sports life. The Angels won the World Series in 2002 and had been to the playoffs every year after that. The Lakers had won 3 straight NBA titles, and Kobe Bryant was still rocking. BYU wasn't great, but I was too young to know that. I guess I was still in my formative years, and then the next year was when BYU started being really good. And so my whole sports life was just like, oh, this, like, my teams are just good. This is always how it shall be. And then the Angels, I swear, have not made the playoffs since.
But if I were to be realistic, I think the thing that I sat through and endured that qualifies me for this weekend that I just experienced in the world of sports is probably BYU-Utah. What was it, 2012?
Was that 54-10?
No, because that was 2000. That was 2010, right? The Jake Hughes year.
2011.
I did sit through that. No, the next year when they were in
Oh,
Salt Lake
the
City
the
and they
three
missed
rush.
three consecutive missed field
Okay,
goals.
that's pretty bad.
I
That's pretty
was
bad.
at that game, so I would say that's my qualification.
It's a cumulative thing. I also love that. As Hunter was talking, I just pictured the meme of the soldier that's protecting the sleeping child, and the soldier is just Tom Brady. Like he's had it good. He's had it good over there in New England. I love it.
All the missiles are like 7-6 BYU football seasons. Just Riley Nelson, Jake Heaps era, BYU 5-7, 2017, and then it's just the soldier with his outstretched arms, just wearing his Tom Brady jersey.
Just Tom Brady.
And yet, then he turned on me and went to Tampa Bay. So you'd be your own people.
It's true. Oh man, but I think it's a cumulative thing. Like Hunter, you said Gerard Mayo. For me, it was the 12 years but 9-game losing streak to Utah. It was Brandon Bradley's knee clearly being down, and they still calling it a fumble, or Kai Nakua's ejection for one of the cleanest hits in football history, or you guys mentioned obviously all the missed field goals and whatnot. I'd even it's a small pebble and an otherwise big pile, but it's the Jake Retzloff like pick six at the goal line. Just BYU fans have had this coming. They've earned it.
What was the 2019 comeback? 28-7.
Oh, it was 27-7 in 2018. I sat through that entire game and almost jumped off the stadium.
You had the only time in his entire college, high school, NFL career that Taysom Hill was stopped and wasn't allowed to gain 2 yards.
This might be a bye week episode. Does Bear get in on that 2-point conversion? Because I think yes.
He sure does.
I also love that we're 9 minutes into this and it's been like, here's all the terrible.
No. We're building up to it. We're building up to it. Because
the listeners are in their car like, why am I? It's a BYU-Utah victory episode, and it's been 10 minutes of just like depressing. Like, I was there.
Look,
27-7.
I'm doing this for 2 reasons. One, so that we can pound our chest later in the show to show that, like, yes, we've earned this victory lap that we're about to take. The other thing is I came to a very sobering conclusion today, after listening to Utah fans just make excuses for the last 48 hours, that I sounded like an idiot for about a decade of my life. Like, if this isn't all what I sounded like, having to hear about, well, we outgained you in total yards. Well, it was a 1-score game, even though your offense never had a chance to take the lead at any point in the game. The refs handed it to you because of XYZ call. If our coaches did something different on 4th and 2, then Utah would win. If we kicked 2 more field goals and BYU did absolutely nothing different, then we would have won that game, Joe. That's been the last 48 hours for me. So
the key difference is
again, the heavens hush as they listen to my trials.
You acted like that at losses number 7, 8, and 9. Right. They are acting like this on losses 2 and 3.
Someone like
we are not the same.
Look,
you and I.
The number of people that I've seen make the post of like, how did BYU fans survive for those 9 years? How did, how was that possible for them to do that? I'm going crazy after 3. And I'm like, well, 1, we're not soft. And 2, hard times create strong men. And you are looking at 3 very strong men, including 1 wearing a bear beanie.
Copium doesn't hit quite as hard when you don't need it.
This is an actual tweet. Someone used mental energy to craft this after 1 losing season and 3 losses to their rival. I'm done with this sport/team, man. He's given up on the entire sport after 3 losses. It just sucks because Utah fans were not allowed to enjoy our success. Buddy, if there's anyone who milked the success, the quote-unquote success, harder than Utah fans, show me those people. Because those people do not exist on the face of the earth anymore. The trash talking after a loss in the Rose Bowl that occurred. There are still, to this day, people who go out into public and wear Utah, Rose Bowl, Penn State t-shirts and Ohio State t-shirts that they lost those games. So don't give me it that they weren't allowed to enjoy success. We have a local media /legislature/religion that hates us, which I don't even know where to begin. With like the state legislature and the religion is like, we hate Utah. They had a Utah graduate prophet for the last 2 decades, and finally a former BYU president becomes prophet. They're like, the religion hates us. A conference that seems to want to watch us fail. I wonder why. All we get is hate. I wonder why. Meanwhile, BYU always gets what it wants. Buddy, BYU fans and BYU were like begging for just an opportunity to compete at a power program level. They've now gotten that opportunity, and in a span of like 2 months after the fact, have not lost to Utah once.
We just
spent overnight playoff contenders in year 2 of being in a power conference that took Utah 8 years to get to that point. And it's like, oh, BYU always gets what it wants. All I want is not an 8:30 p.m. kickoff every week.
Just like petulant children, like you can't put that out there. I don't care if that's what you're feeling. You cannot be a serious person and put that in writing on the internet. And he ended up deleting it about 5 minutes later. You can't make that mistake when you can't make that mistake to tweet that and blame the media for Utah's lack of happiness when your own father works in media in the state of Utah and is like a local media legend. Okay. You can't say that BYU and this religion hates you when our head coach is going into press conferences after the game and is talking about how, look, we need to break the cycle. BYU fans were on the wrong end of this for a lot of years. We need to show respect and love and everything like that to Utah. Meanwhile, your head coach is also saying, yes, we need to show more love to Utah, even when we lost.
Also, your kicker was like kicking during the opening prayer.
Which, are we shocked? The guy wears a nose ring. Like, if you're an adult with a nose ring, I would put the odds of him doing something untoward during a prayer at about minus 700.
Let's also cut the guy some slack. He clearly knew he wasn't going to be kicking at all during the game, so he wanted to at least like warrant why he was on the bus headed to the stadium.
That's what was so funny. He was practicing kickoffs. He wasn't even practicing field goals because he knew he wasn't getting on the field.
He knew better.
The best part was during that game, it was so blatantly obvious that Kalani had called the timeout. Like, there were whistles going off for all of about 5 seconds before that ball was snapped. and that kicker just said, "Just send it." And he missed it about as far right as the distance he had towards the goalpost. He missed it about 39 yards to the right.
Kalani was basically at like face to face with the holder out there calling timeout.
Look, there's a lot to talk about here. I don't want to spend the entire time focusing on the hilarity of our opponent, even though their downfall has been quite amazing because I prayed for it. Do we want to go all in on the Utah hate to start and then go in on the BYU love? Do we go all in on BYU love throughout? What are we doing?
Give me Utah hate until the 30-minute mark.
Okay.
Let him cook.
With that being said,
Kyle Whittingham is a baby. Just the bitterness in that man's soul. You can see it the moment he opens his mouth. Everything that he said was an old man trying to grasp onto the last vestiges of narrative that he can control in that post-game press conference. Like, my favorite post I've seen was, again, Kalani talking about how, Utah deserves a lot of credit. If a couple plays go differently, then, this game could have been a lot different. Utah played really well. And then Kyle Whittingham's press conference is also, if one or two plays go a different way, credit to Utah. We played well enough to win. It's to have your entire press conference be, one, we outgained them in total yards, therefore we were actually the better team, which, buddy, if you want to go down that route, BYU outgained Utah in like 6 of their losses during that streak. So I don't think we want to open up that can of worms.
If only yards scored points.
Talking about how, well, we won 9 in a row and they've only won 3. So we're on the positive side of that ledger, which, again, buddy, when BYU has equal resources with Utah in the Kyle Whittingham era, BYU is 5-3 against you. Okay. It took every possible advantage for you guys to have some success over BYU. And even then it evaporated in 2 years. That's got to be incredibly frustrating. And then to talk about like the targeting penalty, which was so obviously targeting. Like if we can't agree that was targeting, then Utah has lost all semblance of reality.
He went full Yankees Cowboys fan.
He did.
Half a decade ago, we won a bunch of games. Like, it's the classic Yankees losing the playoffs and like, well, we have 27 rings. Or, Cowboys talking about the glory days of the 1980s and early 90s. And it's just like, it's sad to see. And like, as a Utah fan, I don't know like how you're supposed to react to something like that. Because like clearly the edge is gone. Any advantage step up that that Utah had over BYU is gone. And you have a coach that's out there after 3 consecutive losses. You haven't beat BYU since before COVID-19 was a thing. And you're out here saying, well, we won a bunch of games in the 2010s when we were a Power 5 team and BYU was an independent. And it's just like, I don't know how as a Utah fan you're supposed to like rationalize that and be like, yeah, you're right. Everything's all good. And I don't think most of them have, because some of the meltdowns going on are a sight to see. But it's just like I imagine Lavelle, right, at the end of his career, having done all these incredible things, because credit where credit is due. Kyle Whittingham has been a great coach, obviously turned Utah into a, borderline household name, you could say, in the college football world. I know there hasn't been a lot of like postseason success or accolades that like warrant that, but they've been a good team for the last decade and a half. And yet you now watch him and just, it's kind of, I guess I know what it's like. It's a similar thing of, as a Patriots fan, watching Bill Belichick recently. The only thing different is Kyle Whittingham's not dating a 23-year-old co-ed.
That was the next thing I was going to say, is the only thing that can make this funnier is if Kyle Whittingham was dating someone who was 25 years old.
But it's the same thing where it just seems like the game has kind of passed them by. They're clinging to like the past success, not realizing that they've kind of become what they didn't like 5 years ago, where Bill Belichick's thing was always like, it's better to get rid of a player a year or two early than a year or two late. And now he's become that year or two late guy. And Kyle Whittingham seems like he should have retired 3 years ago when they went out and won the Pac-12 and lost in the Rose Bowl again. Like, that could have been the sunset, but instead he's stayed there because he's so vengeful against BYU and refuses to go out not having beaten BYU in that season. And so now he's on his like third offensive coordinator. They don't really have an identity offensively. It's become the wing T, but with just a more spread out formation. It's like, I just don't know how, as a fan of that school, you like how you would feel in given that situation. Like, I couldn't imagine this being Lavelle's like end to his career, right?
The year is 2054. Kyle Whittingham has lost 37 straight games to BYU. He's a skeleton at this point, but he's staying on that sideline until he comes out a winner. The reason his career has fallen off as drastically as it has is the same reason that they lost this game to BYU, and it all just comes down to arrogance. Kyle Whittingham thinks, and again, this is why he's been successful. Like, it's hard to be that successful as a college football coach without being a little bit of a psychopath and a little bit of a narcissist. Kyle Whittingham thinks Kyle Whittingham is the greatest coach of all time. And in his mind, he should probably think that. But the success was never enough for him. He flew too close to the sun. He could have gone out back-to-back Pac-12 champions, but it wasn't enough because losing the Rose Bowl, he thought he could win one. And so he came back for another year thinking, well, we're gonna win the college football playoff. Cam Rising is gonna come back, and we're gonna compete for a national championship, and that's gonna be my legacy. And then Rising doesn't play the entire year, and you go 8-5, and then Rising tricks them into another $2 million in NIL, comes back for another year, and then they go 5-7 and they lose to BYU. And you can't go out a loser to BYU with a losing record, so he decides to come back for another year. And ultimately fails to beat BYU again. But it's like, it's the arrogance to think that he could have had better than he had. And then in this game, the arrogance to think that you were going to go for it on BYU on 4th down 5 times, and that you were going to get all 5 of those, and BYU stonewalls you on 4. And so rather than the narrative being, well, BYU's defensive line dominated that football game when it mattered, the narrative was, well, Coach Whittingham wasn't kicking field goals on 4th and 3.
Well, yeah, he's king of the narrative flip, right? You get boat raced by Texas Tech, and then the narrative becomes, well, Devin Dampierre wasn't healthy. And then they play
these. Did it again.
And then they've done it again. It's crazy. Even if he wasn't healthy, it's because he was getting walloped by BYU's defense all game long. But you're right. Like,
it's the petty press conferences of, well, you're going to have to ask them what they think of Bear. I'm not going to think about our opponent at all this week. Well, you might have won if you did.
If you had known that Bear Bachmeier loves to do the Tim Tebow QB draw in crucial situations, you maybe wouldn't have seen 23 getting in his ass dragged 10 yards into the end zone.
Hey, no cussing.
Sorry.
I think the thing, I think as I get older, and well said, both of you, and Hunter, you talked about this a little bit kind of during your part of this, but the finish line moved. Kyle clearly had his idea of what this was supposed to look like. And frankly, it looked like how Lavelle went out, where Lavelle was successful. He beats his rival on his final rivalry game. A stadium gets named after him, like all these different things. And he could have had it, but because he didn't have all of it all at once, he tripped, and then the goal line moved, and he hasn't been able to catch up to it since. And I feel like, for me, it gets more and more sad just realizing he's almost like Darth Vader. like he was Anakin Skywalker with BYU. He won a national championship. Like he was like in all sense of the word, he was a hero, right? For BYU. He was very good as a linebacker at BYU. And then he joins the dark side and he stays there long enough that it killed him, right? And unfortunately, in this case, there might not be a redemptive arc because he never allowed there to be one where all of a sudden him post Utah is cool with BYU. Like he's burned so many bridges. Like obviously he'll have a relationship with Kalani, but that's more because Kalani's held out an olive branch the entire time and has been, somebody that has respected him the entire time. It's just one of those things where like I don't like Utah and it's hard to respect Kyle, but I do respect Kyle for what he's done. But I hope in some way he eventually comes to grips with the fact that he did a pretty cool thing and he can just kind of let it go.
I thought Trevor was about to dive into the Max Hall.
No,
where he's like, I don't like Utah. In fact, I hate him.
I'll go there. I respect Kyle Whittingham's success. I do not respect Kyle Whittingham at all. Like as a person, I do not like his get down. I do not like his vengefulness. I do not like his pettiness. I do not like how he treats people. I don't like how he treats reporters. I don't like how he treats his fans. Like cutting them out of absolutely everything, trying to game every possible advantage. I don't like the way he treats the conference. I don't like how he treats his opponents. I don't even like how he treats Kalani Sitake. Like all we hear about from Kalani is how Kyle Whittingham is his mentor. And Kyle Whittingham has said, yeah, I consider Kalani a friend. Yet every single time I see Kyle Whittingham go to shake Kalani's hand post game, it's like a 2-second thing just so Kyle can go yell at somebody. Like he is a small, petty, and vengeful human being. And I would tell that to him I hope he listens because I would tell that to his face. Okay. Your undoing was your lack of respect. Your undoing was refusing to acknowledge that BYU was a peer, that BYU had equal talent to you in the trenches. And I am glad that you went out like the pathetic little bleep that you are. Okay. You earned this. And I get it. You had 9 years of success when you were on unequal footing with BYU. And I am so glad to see that we have caught up in a blink of an eye, that your program has fallen by the wayside, that you have no money, that you have no prospects, and that you yourself have undone your legacy. Everything that you built at Utah and everything that you thought was sustainable into the next era of college football is gone now. Like, look at this was your shot, Utah. If you were going to get BYU, this was your year. You have 2 NFL draft picks at offensive tackle. You have a quarterback who everyone thought at the beginning of the season was going to be top 10 in the Heisman for whatever reason. You have a vaunted defense with all the talent in the world, and you still failed. And now we go and look at what's in the future. Utah still has no money. They still have an awful recruiting class, while BYU is pulling in 5-star recruits, and your best recruits and your committed recruiting class are in our locker room celebrating with the team after the game. Okay. That is Kyle Whittingham's legacy at this point, is a guy who was born on third base with more resources, that lucked into a P5 invite because of religious bigotry. And the end of his career was 3 straight losses to the team that he hates most. And I could not be happier about it.
And if he wants to come back and try to beat BYU again, we'll make it 4 straight next year.
Like, seriously. Go look at Utah's roster next year. Their entire offensive line is gone. Their quarterback is gone. And if I have to hear another offseason about how Utah finally has the wide receivers this year, they went to the transfer portal and raided New Mexico's 3rd-string closet, and this is the year that they're going to have receivers that can beat BYU one-on-one. How did that go?
With Satuala back there freaking lighting people up, you bring any receiver you want.
And again, like it's all the more frustrating, and I need to be more like Kalani, maybe. But like Whittingham, it just makes me love Kalani so much more because Whittingham has not earned Kalani's respect. He just hasn't. And I know Jay Hill loves Whittingham too. And maybe Whittingham is just the nicest guy in the entire world behind closed doors. That's not my read on the situation because, again, he just seems like a petty, vengeful, small man who is going to go out a loser.
I don't think Joe likes Kyle Whittingham very much.
I hate him. I hate
Right.
everything about him.
I mean, it's got to just be like a Lavelle thing. Like Trevor mentioned, he was a national championship player under Lavelle, and I just wonder his player coach mentor Lavelle was a national champion. His coaching mentor and Urban Meyer went on and won national championships, and I just wonder if Kyle just feels less than his two guys, Urban and Lavelle, until he's able to, do something of note. But to date, like, I can't call a Rose Bowl loss to the Big 12, Big 10 team that didn't happen to make the playoff that year like anything of note. So, and it just, at what point do you just say, I've had a good career, I'm going to hang it up, whether you beat BYU that year or not? It's just, because even as soon as the game ended, the conversations began of like, well, I wouldn't, from Utah media saying I wouldn't put it past him even before the game. I think it was O'Connell from ESPN 700 who was on BYU Sports Nation and said something along the lines of like, well, if Utah doesn't win tonight, like, I see a scenario where Kyle Whittingham sticks around another year. In which case, if you're Morgan Scally, you got to get up and get out of there. How many years are you going to be sitting and waiting on hand and knee for this guy to finally just retire? How many years do you have to be coaching waiting before you just say, you know what, I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to be a head coach somewhere else?
My dream is that he leaves for one of these SEC jobs. Because that's it. Like, I think Morgan Scally could actually be really good. I think he's a great dude. I think he can be successful. But until Utah gets their bread up, it's probably not going to happen.
But it's like, what's the incentive now for him to keep waiting? It's not like Utah is, a top program in their conference anymore. Like, they are not even the top program in their own state. They're losing in-state recruiting battles now that they're on the level playing field. They're, middle of the pack in the conference. Like, what? It's not like he's going to be inheriting this program that's ready to roll and win at a high level. He can go somewhere else, and he'd have to do a similar job trying to rebuild a program up than that he would have to do at Utah. So, and we said we'd talk Utah till the 30-minute mark. Now we can. The dancing on the grave has ended. Let's continue to dance on the grave, but with BYU players hand in hand.
Oh, finally! I'm dying. Let's talk about our boys.
Okay, so I'm going to pivot in this way. Coming into the game, the question on my mind was, at what point in my life would Utah no longer feel larger than life? Like, at what point would I not feel sick to my stomach inside every time the Holy War is played? When would I stop viewing Utah's players as superhuman and mythical creatures? The answer was around the 11-yard line of Bear Bachmeier's 22-yard touchdown run.
That was an exorcism.
I don't fear them anymore. Like, the scales have fallen from my eyes as I watch poor Jackson Benny, man, get hurdled and dragged. Like,
for once,
you can't, like, we're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. Like, it's just,
for once it
went through it.
For once it was Utah with the white. For once it was Utah with the white local undersized safety being embarrassed multiple times on the field in a rivalry game.
He's a corner. Don't disgrace our people like that.
Okay, corner.
It's a white cornerback.
Defensive back. Because after a decade of that always being BYU's guys, like, we got our defensive backs from Payson out there competing against these guys on Utah from California, Florida, and all over the country. And for once it was the other way around. I this game definitely did it for me, Joe, in a similar way, albeit a different play. And for me, it was the Maury Bamba 4th down stop,
Yeah.
where he has the closing speed and the ability to make that open field tackle, where I was finally like, okay, BYU has the guys that are on the same level as Utah for once. Like, just the athletes, the, star, you talk about recruiting stars and just like the recruits that they bring in. Like, BYU now has the players that match the talent on both sides. That talent gap that they always talk about no longer exists. And for a decade, BYU had to use coaching and scheme to keep these games close and to be competitive and to beat Utah. And now this year, it finally seemed like it was a 1-to-1 lineup on both sides of the ball. Our guys match your guys, and let's just go out and see who's the better team. And we obviously saw what happened. But it was in that moment when Maury Bamba comes down from his position, makes that open field tackle on 4th down on their opening possession, that was like, okay, we've got the guys. Like, it's no longer a situation where you look at Utah's team and think, well, they're certainly more talented than BYU. BYU's just going to have to find a way to win. It was, no, we both have got some pretty dang talented players, and it's just who's going to be the better team.
I love both of those. For me, it was the fact that we had players on both sides of the ball that just at one point in the game just absolutely mossed the crap out of their guys. Like Chase Roberts just high pointing a ball into the end zone over his assignment. And let me even rewind, not even just the catch itself. Chandler, shout out Chandler. He pointed out right after the play, and I went back when I watched it again yesterday. It was the fact that Chase Roberts took a single step to the outside and his hand went right up. I mean, they were running parallel with each other at that point, and Chase Roberts said, "I got him," and Bear said, "You sure do." And he absolutely just dunked on him. And then on the opposite side of the ball is our boy who we're finally sold on, Tanner Wall, just absolutely climbing the ladder. And who knew? I mean, obviously, I think we all know that. I think we all knew that Joe wasn't a big fan of Kyle, but Tanner Wall absolutely popping off after the game. He gets his pick. He then calls out. I didn't realize Jackson had sent the one video that I had listened to. I didn't realize that Tanner Wall had said, if the coach up there is anything as competitive as I am, I don't know if I could retire on that. I wouldn't be able to sleep for weeks.
Yeah,
it's literally what he said.
Try again.
He literally said, 3-0. Hey, you over there. We've got you. I'm out.
Tanner Wall said, Whittingham, you are a loser. Take the W. You are hit now.
Tanner Wall dunked on arguably one of his better receivers and said, hold on, I ain't done yet. I have some things I need to say.
Golly.
Tanner Wall hit him with the Remember the Titans, where he picks off the ball and he might as well have just ran over to the coach and just pointed at him.
That's 3-0 versus Utah, Tanner Wall, for what it's worth.
I love that guy.
I love that both he and Chase Roberts were just like, yeah, when people ask, what's it like to use to Utah, guess I'll never know. Like, it just,
they wanted to know what it would be like if I didn't win.
Guess we'll
never know.
So good.
I've got 2 questions.
Can I do the ad read first?
You most certainly can. These 2 questions are sponsored.
Okay, these 2 questions are sponsored by Wilner O'Reilly Immigration Law. Need help with immigration? Wilner O'Reilly has 26 years of experience, a former immigration officer on staff, and a reputation you can trust. They serve professional athletes, entertainers, Fortune 500 companies, and families, and treat every case with the same level of care. They speak 10 languages, including Spanish, and consultations are free. Hype Train listeners get exclusive access to free consultations, no strings attached. Go to WilnerO'Reilly.com and mention the Hype Train to connect with a team that gets results. Speaking of teams that don't get results, any team coached by Kyle Whittingham in the last 5 years.
My question to you both is, we talked about the play in which we were kind of like, okay, it's over. Like the rain, the intimidation is over. I want to get your 4 biggest plays of the game in order, rank them in top 4, and then I want to know where the Bear Bachmeier 22-yard touchdown run lives, in your opinion, in your lifetime, of the greatest BYU-Utah plays. So we'll start first with like this particular game, and then we'll talk, because I'm sure we'll all have that Bear play at the top of our lists. And then after that, I want to get where that Bear play ranks in your lifetime. Trevor?
Okay, top four from this game. Number four, I think, just because this game's going to mean a lot to me, and I've got some moments that I wanted to, even share on top of this later, just kind of these small little effort plays that I saw. But number 4 for me is a combination of 2 plays back to back, which I know is kind of cheating, but LJ Martin once again was over 100 yards rushing in this game, but there were 2 plays back to back that I knew the outcome of the game yesterday, but watching what he did in pass protection got me off my couch and fist pumping all over again. So the Utah had just taken the lead. Their running back Bray had that nice long touchdown that had just given them the lead. BYU was responding, and Bear Bachmeier hits Parker Kingston on a nice little out route, and then follows it up immediately with stepping up in the pocket and hitting Carson Ryan for like another 25-yard pass. Placed it beautifully behind Carson, so he wasn't going to take a big hit. But if you watch LJ Martin on that play, LJ Martin picked up Logan Fano twice, and not only picked up the block, but just stonewalled him. And as awesome as LJ Martin the runner is, LJ Martin the football player is just the best. Like, just winning plays. So that was my number 4. I think Talon Alfrey falling on that muffed punt, it only led to 3 points, but Talon Alfrey falling on that muffed punt for me is number 3. He doesn't get in a whole lot, but man, like every time he does, like something good happens, and it's just because he's always ready to go. So that was number 3 for me. The Chase Moss, we talked about that earlier. I don't think anything needs to be said further about that. But then obviously Bear Bachmeier's run, I said it earlier in the show, but it was an exorcism. It would have only been that much more perfect had he broken 9 tackles instead of 8, 1 for each of the game of that losing streak that BYU went on. But for him and the offensive line to just outwill the entirety of Utah's defense is going to go down as one of my favorite college football plays of all time, not just my favorite Holy War play of all time.
So my number 4 is, it's cheating because it's a 2-parter, but Bear getting out of that sack on the play that he got targeted on. That was that's probably the most underrated play of the game, in my opinion, because if he takes a sack there, that drive is probably over. But he gets out of it. He honestly had a chance to hit Carson Ryan on that shovel, but ultimately just gets it out of bounds, which I think was a smart play. And then on the following play, Parker Kingston on that jet sweep, just being faster than everybody else, to be honest. The reason being, BYU was down 14-10 at that point, and to respond immediately with a touchdown drive, like Utah never had the ball with the lead in this game. And so to respond with Utah's touchdown drive, which could have been a backbreaker, to show that the grit of this team to go get another score. Number 3, I'm going to give it to Faletau Satuala on that massive hit on Simmons. Just showed that physically these two teams are different. Like Faletau is an NFL player. That guy's a second round pick at worst at this point, in my opinion. It just showed that like BYU is the more violent team and they're the more athletic team in this game. Number 2, Tanner Wall's interception. I think that was kind of the moment where you're just like, okay, BYU's going to win. And then obviously number 1 is Bear rumbling into the end zone.
Number 1 is obviously Bear. Number 2 for me is Tanner Wall's interception. Number 3, I believe this was like on a 3rd and 11, the option pitch from Bear to LJ down the east sideline. Cody Hagan had an incredible block on that play as well. That kind of sprung LJ for the first down. And the 4th wasn't even a play. It was a lack of a play. And that was Utah false starting on first down at their own 10-yard line on their very first possession before they even ran a single play with their back to the rock. It was it's very famous, the Michigan having to call a timeout before running a single play against Penn State in the whiteout because the atmosphere is so intense that they're about to get a delay of game and they have to call a timeout. This is the zero sugar version of that. And it set the tone, I think, for the entire game from a fan perspective, because Lavelle Edwards Stadium, I'm sorry, Joe, I know you are the only one here that wasn't at the game. That was like 2021 Utah game was crazy. Baylor game was crazy that year as well. Like there's been a lot of moments. That game on Saturday night might have been like the most raucous, loud, and just like at all moments, like we've gone through and we've talked about all these big plays, but there's like countless other big plays that haven't been mentioned. Obviously, Jack Kelly's sack on 4th and 15 to kind of seal the win. You had Chase Roberts' big play before his receiving touchdown. He had a huge chunk yardage gain. There's a lot of great LJ runs. Satuala's big hits. Like there was countless moments where the atmosphere and the fans were just going crazy. But I think that false start before Utah ran a single play in the entire game set the stage for the student section and the rest of Lavelle Edwards Stadium to know, like, okay, we can impact this game. And I was on ESPN 960 with Ben Criddle before and brought this up, that BYU being a 3.5 point underdog to open at home in the rivalry game was a slap in the face to BYU fans, because it showed that like, that the atmosphere at Lavelle Edwards Stadium and the fans weren't viewed as a group that could impact the game in any way, because you bet that if the game was in Rice-Eccles Stadium, they would be talking about how the home field advantage for Utah would be the difference or a difference maker in that matchup. Not once was it ever brought up for BYU. And I think that the fans showed before Utah snapped the ball a single time that they were going to be a difference maker in this BYU-Utah game.
100%. Like that was one of the stunning things that I kept hearing all week, was about how, narrative was Utah's going to dominate, lay the points with Utah, whatever.
Yep.
And just like the utter disrespect of Lavelle Edwards Stadium, that clearly people still don't get it. Like people don't get that you don't just walk out of Lavelle Edwards Stadium alive, especially at night. And I looked into the stats last week. It was something crazy. Like BYU is 12-1 over the last 5 years in sellout environments at home. They're 5-1 now against ranked opponents. And Utah in those same environments is 1-7 against ranked opponents. So it's just like the disrespect to think that Utah could win a big game on the road was just shameful. The other aspect of that is Utah blinked on that play. Like, you're having a staring contest, and the moment you flinch at them, they blink. Like, blood is in the water at that point, man. Like,
Yep.
you lost the game at that point. And again, the question was, Utah has only played in 3-score games this year. What would they do in a close one? And we already kind of knew the answer because that Texas Tech game was a close one. They got blown out. That's what Utah does in close games, is they fold. And that's exactly what they did again. Like, you go up 14-10 in the fourth quarter and your defense can't get a stop. Like, your vaunted Utah defense, who everyone thinks is an NFL level defense, you couldn't get a stop in the fourth quarter when you needed it. You go up 14-10 and give up 14 unanswered. Like, that is sad.
Everyone's going to point to, oh, well, that's because Lander Barton wasn't in there anymore. Well, then the guy shouldn't have targeted, right? Like,
dude, Lander Barton is not that good. I'm sorry. Like, Utah fans were calling for his benching last year. Like, and he was the one who Utah fans were like, oh, BYU's offering him $1 million to come play for BYU. To do what? Was my answer.
Yeah, he wouldn't.
Like, he's
a starter at BYU.
He's a fine player. That did not impact the game, in my opinion. BYU was winning that game no matter what.
I do think it's interesting that Lander Barton's out, and then where does Bear run on his 22-yard touchdown run to seal the victory? Kind of right in that hole left by Lander Barton being gone.
He was running through Lander Barton too. Like,
you want to run him over as well.
Like, on that sack, on the play I mentioned where Bear Bachmeier eluded the sack where he was clearly down. You watch that play again. Utah's safety Tao Johnson has Bear wrapped up and inexplicably lets go and pushes Bear away. The only reason I can think is that he saw his future, and that future was going to look a lot like Jackson Benny's if he didn't just let go. He was going to end up on the other side of Coach 40.
It was like, that's so Raven, like, glimpse into the future.
Even Hunter, to your point with Lander Barton's ejection, like, the very next play is when Parker scored, and Robert Griffin was talking about it on the broadcast. They run that jet sweep, and the guy who was responsible for Parker had what Robert called late eyes getting to that side of the field, and then he ends up getting swallowed up by Bruce Mitchell or whoever it was. That was Lander Barton's replacement. And I think Joe talked about kind of how more violent and more physical BYU is on defense. I think that the BYU offense has become more aggressive. It just felt like, especially in that 9-year, or excuse me,
BYU's offense was more physical and violent in that game too, to your point.
Absolutely. But they've become more aggressive, and they've become more opportunistic. And I talked about this a little bit after the Arizona game, but I actually felt like the Arizona game was going to prove more beneficial for this game than it was going to be a detriment because they played in 2 overtimes or because it was too emotional. The Holy War is not some game. Like, I'm not really sure it matters energy wise what happened the week before. You're going to get up for this game regardless. It's just the nature of the beast. However, the lessons that you learn in an emotional game the week before is something that can translate and have you feel a lot more comfortable. Has a freshman quarterback feeling at home, feeling and understanding like, hey, we just dealt with this. Like, not only are we only down 4, we were down 14 just last week. We had given up 24 unanswered just last week. A few weeks even prior to that, we were down 14 on the road against Colorado. Like, for everyone talking about like, oh, well, BYU's not that good because they're just squeaking by. The reality is BYU is good because they know how to squeak by and they know how to win and they're gritty and they understand what it takes to come out on top. And in the moment between two teams where one has experience and one doesn't, just like Joe said, one blinked and the other one put their nose to the grinder and just went.
So since when in the sport of football did finding ways to come back and win close games become such a negative thing? It doesn't make any sense. Real quick pause to offer condolences to Jerem Jordan and Robbie McCombs as the Seattle Mariners blew a 2-run lead in the bottom of the 7th inning to lose Game 7 4-3.
No,
and very mean of Monday Night Football that is currently Seattle Seahawks hosting the Houston Texans to immediately cutting to sad fans wearing Mariners jerseys in the Seahawks stands. The second the game was over, it was like, here's a montage of sad Mariners fans at a football game. Very mean of Joe Buck.
Just brutal. I don't know how to come back from that. Hunter's point is a great one that like I hate when people say, one, I'm a little bit frustrated. I shouldn't care, but hearing all week in the national, like listening to every national podcast on the Holy War and hearing, if BYU just keeps it close, I'll respect them. And then in the post game, the College Game Day podcast doesn't mention them once. Joel Klatt doesn't mention them once. The Cover 3 podcast also doesn't mention them once. And
Klatt's the worst. I'm ready
100%.
to go all in on this, that Joel Klatt just doesn't know ball.
I agree. But the ones that do talk about BYU, they just say, well, they just, they find ways to win. And that just, one, it's true, but it's also lazy because you need to ask yourself, like what ways are they winning? They are winning because they are the more physical team in every single game that they've played. They are winning because no team this year has managed to stop their run attack, especially in moments that matter. Like this BYU team has answered the bell, running the football down teams' throats. Like between the tackles, BYU averaged 5.4 yards per carry on Utah. Utah's offensive line, who everyone talked about, the vaunted Utah offensive line, averaged 3.6 yards per carry on runs between the tackles. BYU stonewalled them. They were just the finding ways to win in this Utah game means BYU physically being a better football team than Utah.
Amen and amen. Bear run in your lifetime, BYU-Utah, or at least your like coherent lifetime.
3.
I don't think any of us are going to say Luke Staley's run in 2001.
See, that's an interesting one. I looked into, I tried to make a list of it. The Luke Staley one doesn't make the list because of the lack of stakes. Like BYU had already sealed up the Mountain West Conference title. They weren't going to make a BCS game either way. It was the most iconic play of Staley's career, in a career that like most fans don't remember because he was wearing tan jerseys when it happened. And we've all just collectively decided to forget those years.
It is like kind of well known for being like the loudest LaVell Edwards Stadium had ever been. And I wonder for fans who were there and remember that, how it compares to the Bear Bachmeier run. Like in terms of just crowd pop.
So I'm going to say it's 3. Number 5 being Will Ferrell's field goal last year. Again, because of the stakes, like you're an undefeated BYU. You can't let your first loss be Utah. Like that cannot happen. So that's number 5. Number 4 is Last Miracle for LaVell, because only legends go out winners in the Holy War. Number 3 is Bear Bachmeier's run. Again, because of the stakes, like this is the most important Holy War of my lifetime, most likely. Number 2, 4th and 18. Number 1 is Beck to Harleen.
Give me
respectable.
Joe's whole list except for switch 2 and 3 for reasons that we talked about in the group chat. Fourth and 18. Obviously it's top 5, so like it's plenty respectable. And it's a huge iconic play. There were things after that play that had to happen in order for that game to come out a BYU victory. Whereas I feel like Bears run, for all the reasons that we talked about. I think I won't put it there because I think Back to Harleen is just so iconic. It's in Rice Eccles Stadium. The call at the time by the commentators, like all of it's just like perfect. But I think there's an argument actually for Bears to be number 1. It as Joe said, like the scales fell from your eyes. That felt like a play where the ball, like the pendulum had started swinging the other way. And you want to talk about crowd pop, like obviously, like Hunter, you were there. I don't know if you had a similar experience, but when he crossed that goal line with about 7 other bodies, it was like those scenes in war movies where if in the first Iron Man movie where that missile hits right next to Tony Stark and it explodes, and then it's kind of like the tetanus ringing sound effect, and that's it. There's no other noise. It's just that ringing sound. That was me for about 5 seconds. And it was just masses of people hugging each other, and I'm high-fiving people I've never seen before in my life, and we're all just like jumping up and down, and it's a mini earthquake in there. It was an unbelievable moment. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but that was so relieving in so many ways. Like it was so validating of everything that Kalani and the coaches like professed that they wanted to be. They wanted to be tough. They wanted to play to win rather than, do like essentially like play not to lose, right? It's up there, and it was on the legs of a 19-year-old kid playing in his first Holy War. I mean, you want to talk about stakes, like first ranked game between the two teams since 2009, but it was the play where the owner of the state shifted.
We can agree that this was bigger than 2021, right?
Yes.
Like I think ending the streak is great. I think this win officially moves the state capital of football to Provo.
I agree with that. I'm going to say number 1 is Back to Harleen. Number 2 is Collie 4th and 18. This is probably number 3. Bears touchdown runs probably number 3. Number 4, I'm going to say, was Andrew George overtime, 2009. That was, the last 2 times that both teams have been in the top 25 was this year and 2009. And I'm going to say Will Farron's kick was number 5 because of, I think I agree with you, Joe, like the stakes of the last year's game of BYU being undefeated. You don't want your first loss of the season to be against Utah. That game obviously felt really big and was really big, but I think if you're comparing the last 3 wins for BYU, that's firmly 3rd out of the 3.
I agree.
And so while the kick was absolutely awesome, BYU ended up losing their next 2 games anyway. And while the rivalry win was nice, it didn't end the streak, and it didn't change BYU and Provo to the football capital of the state. It wasn't a top 25 matchup with conference championship implications on the line. So for that reason, I have to put that at number 5. Although still top 5 of my lifetime is pretty big. With that said, any other thoughts on the BYU-Utah game? We're over an hour. BYU, last time they beat Utah, lost the next 2 games. There is a game this Saturday for BYU against Iowa State that we have not even to be fair, I haven't even thought about. We obviously haven't even talked about it yet on this podcast.
Hey, and that was the first thing I tweeted after the clock hit 0 was back to work on to Iowa State.
But that's the players' jobs. Our jobs as fans and Hype Train hosts is to celebrate the win against Utah as long as we live, because the feeling of being at LaVell Edwards Stadium with 64,000 BYU fans. On that note, side note, not to get distracted, the dummy out there that said there was going to be like 30,000 Utah fans at that game. There probably wasn't even 3,000 Utah fans at that game. But the feeling of being at LaVell Edwards Stadium with 60,000 plus BYU fans, your closest friends in the world, after they beat Utah to remain undefeated, is such an indescribable feeling. And it's a feeling that I'll never get tired of. Just a win over Utah. BYU win on any given Saturday, but especially BYU wins over Utah are just a feeling that hopefully never take for granted and never get tired of, because it's awesome. And it being there on Saturday and the way it happened was just made it that much more sweet.
You guys are hurting my feelings.
So I will celebrate it while the team prepares for Iowa State.
I am sick to my stomach that I wasn't there. I am sick to my stomach that every person I asked to go to the game said no.
Did you have tickets?
I got offered tickets
asked me
3 different times.
And you said no every time?
Well, you guys were both already going to the game, and I knew that.
That's not true. I didn't know I was going to the game till Saturday morning.
What? Okay, well, now it's even worse.
The best part, you want to know one of the best parts of this win is the fact that Hunter's preseason joke of Witt going back to back losses to BYU is now officially set in stone.
Ball knower.
Just immortalized. That joke was immortalized on the feet and the big paws of Bear Blockmeyer.
So far, haven't been wrong once yet on that.
Last thing I'll say, BYU won the success rate chart, so
we did it.
We did it.
A real victory, finally.
Unreal. All right, Iowa State.
Yeah, they're a football team that plays in Iowa. BYU plays there as well this weekend. That's my preview.
Is it it's insane that Iowa State's favored by 2.5, right?
Good.
I love it.
Good. Keep it coming.
Do it every game.
Again, analytics nerd over here. I'm looking at every predictive metric I can find on this game. Every single one of them has BYU as a 3 to 4 point favorite. I have no idea why Vegas thinks that Iowa State should be favored in this game. Statistically, I don't see why. Iowa State's good. Don't get me wrong. They're one of the better teams in the conference, and they've been riddled with injuries this year. But BYU's the better football team.
Here, what? Yeah, 2020.
So
how much of it is just expecting a letdown after a rivalry game?
That's got to be it, right?
You go on the road. You did the exact same thing a season ago, and you lost your next 2 games. I wonder how much of it is just based off of that. But keep it coming. Make BYU an underdog every single week. It's an absolute gauntlet of a schedule the next month. You go on the road against Iowa State, then a bye week, then on the road against Texas Tech, then TCU, then on the road against Cincinnati. Those 4 games are going to be an absolute gauntlet. I hope BYU is an underdog in every single one of them. I hope that BYU feels disrespected in every single one of them and goes out there and proves everyone wrong. Keep the chips coming and just keep piling them on your shoulder and ride those all the way to a Big 12 championship.
This game feels eerily similar to last year's Baylor game. You had just come off an emotional win that had a lot of national eyes. Obviously, this year Utah, last year was Kansas State, and the beatdown that ensued there. You're not playing a night game, and it's not only is it a road environment, but it's right before a bye. This is a team that BYU 1000% can beat. Joe, you mentioned, like, I think they're like top 4 defensive backs are all out for the season. So it's not a lot of the injuries that Iowa State is dealing with is not being fixed by a bye week. I think that's been kind of something that fans have kind of been talking about, is like, oh, well, Iowa State's coming off of a bye week. Iowa State's issues, unfortunately, and I genuinely mean that, because I don't want any player at any university to miss time due to injury. But Iowa State's issues this year on defense are the fact that they've lost guys. And that's, their offense is good, but BYU's defense has responded in every game they've played. For me, this is the Baylor game. Get out of there with a win and hit the bye, and just see where the chips fall after that.
So, one, Iowa State, again, want to reiterate, this is a good football team that could 100% beat BYU.
Yep.
I think the letdown after Utah is a little bit of a myth, in my opinion. Yes, BYU lost their 2 games after Utah last year. In 2021, they followed it up, their win over Utah, with a win over Arizona State, who was ranked, which was arguably the more impressive win of the two.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, they followed up a loss in the Holy War with a win at Tennessee. In 2018, they followed up a loss at Utah with a blowout win in their bowl game, with Zach Wilson going 18 for 18. Like, I think there's a little bit of recency bias with that whole letdown after Utah thing. Like, I do think this team is mentally strong enough to overcome that. Really, my confidence just lies in, I think Iowa State's BYU's a better football team. Like,
yeah,
some ranks here, BYU's 4th in red zone defense. Iowa State is 118th in red zone offense. BYU is 31st in red zone offense, and Iowa State's 100th in red zone defense. BYU ranks 15th in sacks allowed. Iowa State ranks 120th in sacks. BYU is, as far as advanced analytics go, BYU is 16th nationally in EPA per play. Iowa State is 42nd. BYU is 30th in offensive success rate and 20th in defensive success rate. Iowa State's outside the top 40 in all of those. Like, I think BYU is just the better football team, and all of those stats don't take into account that Iowa State also doesn't have their top 4 defensive backs in this game. Like, I think BYU should be able to run on them. Like, on defense, they rank 63rd in the country in success rate per rush allowed. BYU is 24th. Like, BYU is going to be able to run the football, and I think Bear Bachmeier can pass on them too. Like, Bear hasn't been amazing throwing the ball this year. Like, I think he's been better than his statistics show.
I just don't think he's been asked to do much.
Like, he's on target still. Against Utah, he was still on target on like 73% of his passes. Like, there were a lot of those incompletions against Utah. One of them was a bad drop by Parker. The others were like receivers getting mugged downfield and pass interference just not being called. And so the pass falls incomplete, but that has nothing to do with Bear.
Yeah, I think it's just also that they've kind of brought it back in. I feel like after letting him sling it against Colorado, then you play a really, really good pass defense in Arizona in the rain. Then you're playing a Utah defense. I think this is a game where you kind of let the reins loose a little bit again. For me, I really want to see them get Chase Roberts involved and get him involved early.
Yeah,
I agree.
He had 5 catches against Stanford, 5 against ECU, 5 against Colorado, 4 against West Virginia for 161 yards. Since then, he had 2 catches for 25 yards against Arizona, 2 catches for 43 yards against Utah. Both of those 2 catches were back-to-back plays on one drive. So I think getting the ball into the hands of your best players, which Chase Roberts certainly is one of those, it can help set the tone. And I think, especially being on the road against a good Iowa State team, I want to see Chase Roberts get the ball in his hands early and often on Saturday And I think that is what's going to help Bear kind of get into a rhythm and be able to, maybe let that thing fly around the field a little bit more than he has the last couple of weeks. But Chase Roberts is probably my X factor going into this game.
And I sent a tweet out yesterday. You get Chase Roberts going and they have to focus more attention on him than you just get Parker Kingston revved up. I mean, they've been a phenomenal 1-2 punch over the last couple of weeks, and Parker especially has gotten hot. I mean, he's had 4 touchdowns over the last 3 games, and has been he had the bad drop obviously against Utah, but he has been massive in BYU's success over the last couple of weeks. I'll take it even a step further. Like I think yes, Hunter is 1000% correct. You need to get Chase Roberts going early. I think you need to get the receivers as a whole going. Cody Hagan has had his moments this year as well, but he's been almost non-existent the last couple of weeks. I feel like he's another guy that can take a step forward. Carson Ryan, I'd like to see a little bit more out of him than I've seen the last couple of weeks. He was pretty good against Utah, but I think kind of not quite air raid. Obviously, I don't think A-Rod, when you have a guy like LJ Martin, you can't go full air raid anyway, but I think a more aerial assault would be something, one, that's good for the offense to see work, but 2, just a good way to attack Iowa State.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that this is a game that we want to see BYU air it out a little bit more. In their last 2 games, Iowa State gave up 10 yards per pass against Colorado, Patreon Boys Delight, 8.6 yards against Cincinnati, and then against Arizona, they gave up, excuse me, sorry. Fafita didn't have a great game against them, but I mean, the last 2 weeks at the very least, Sorsby and Salter was able to throw on Iowa State's defense a ton. They're really feeling the loss of those corners. I want to see if Bear can take that next step in his progression. He's passed every single test that we've asked him to. I want to see him throw for 250 plus on this Iowa State team. And I think with that, BYU is going to be able to run the football on Iowa State. Like, again, on defense, 77th in the country on success rate per dropback and 63rd on success rate per rush for Iowa State's defense. Like, this is a middling defense right now that BYU is facing. And I think BYU, like, am I crazy to say like BYU's got like a top 30 to top 25 offense in the country this year? Like, I think the stats bear that out. And if that's what you are, I think you need to be able to move the football on this Iowa State team.
BYU points for is 35.6 per game, which is 30th in the country.
So great.
So right on the money. Official predictions and hot takes presented by
Odeon Menswear. Look good, feel good. Sorry, look good, feel good, so that you can do good in the best moments of your life. We've talked about them ad nauseum just because we love Odeon Menswear so much. Braden Day is a huge BYU fan. He puts royal blue in the linings of all of his suits that are for sale, so that even Utah fans that wear Odeon have to rep the Y a little bit. Very, very comfortable. The brand we recommend going with is Elevate. I mean, we could suit up for BYU right now, literally in a suit, with how comfortable those things are.
I wore my Elevate suit jacket to a wedding a little over a week ago. Didn't even notice I had it on the dance floor. Just was going bananas. Normally, I got to take the suit jacket off, obviously, because you start working up a sweat. It restricts the arm movements, and I'm an arm movement kind of dancer. Didn't even notice it. Felt like I was wearing a t-shirt out there. It was so comfortable. But so shout out to Odeon Menswear. Also shout out to the Odeon Menswear, not player of the game, but MVPs of the game against Utah. the BYU fans and everyone who was in LaVell Edwards Stadium, and even
Well
Joe,
deserved.
who wasn't in LaVell Edwards Stadium. There was too many players to pick from. Everyone played their part. Everyone did their one.
And by the way, as a reward for you all earning the MVP, 15% off your next suit order using the code HighTrain15.
Bang.
Our gift to you after helping gift us as the fan base a win over Utah. My hot take is going to be that Cody Hagan gets his first receiving touchdown of his career. He has 2 career touchdowns, one against Colorado, one against Portland State. Both of those technically rushing touchdowns. I think Joe mentioned 2 cornerbacks for Iowa State are out. That means everyone has to step up. Obviously, cornerback 3 is going to be guarding Chase. 4 is going to be guarding Parker Kingston. I think Cody Hagan can win a battle against the 5th string cornerback for Iowa State. I think he gets his first receiving touchdown of his career on Saturday. And I'm going to say score prediction is going to be 27-17 Cougs.
I love that.
So I'm going to go with 31-24 BYU. I like Rocco Becht a lot. I think he's probably a top 3 or 4 quarterback that BYU is going to play this year. I think he's going to be the strongest test, particularly because Iowa State has good receivers, where I don't think that Arizona had the best receiving core. I think this is going to test BYU a little bit in the secondary. That said, I think BYU's got a top 10 secondary. I think they're up to the challenge on that. I'm going to say my hot take, Bear Bachmeier throws for 3 touchdown passes against an FBS opponent for the first time.
Gosh, dang it.
One of those to Cody Hagan.
He peeked at my note. He peeked at my notes.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
He's wearing the bear hat, Joe.
I have to come up with one on the fly. Yes. For me, my score prediction, I think after a bye week, especially, I think Iowa's such a respectable program. They're like, I genuinely I love the Cyclones. I think they're awesome.
I do too.
I'm gonna have it a little bit closer than you two. I have it 31-27 BYU. I just think that we're along with a lot of other teams that BYU has played so far this year, we're going to get Iowa State's best shot, because it is for them a crossroads of, well, are we going to start stacking wins again in conference, or are we going to start the season 2-3 in our conference games? But give me BYU secondary 2 interceptions.
Ooh.
2 interceptions and they still score 27.
I was thinking the same thing, but
that's gonna be a friggin'
that's Sama. Their running back, he's pretty good. So.
I do like Abu Sama.
I can't do another close game. I just give me one.
I want this to play out like the Baylor game last year, except BYU doesn't stop running the football because they aren't dealing with their 8th string running back.
Real quick, Big 12 whip around.
Oh, goodness.
We already did BYU, Iowa State, but real quick, Kansas State at Kansas. Kansas is 2.5-point favorites. 10 a.m. on TNT.
Hello, I want to play on TNT so bad. Give me Kansas. They finally break the streak. What is it, 15 in a row now?
Something like that.
There's just something about getting over the hump. We've seen it, we've lived it, and I think
at Kansas,
this will be Kansas State's Super Bowl. I think they keep the streak going.
I'm also going to take Kansas State. This one, we're going to pick the spread. Oklahoma State at Texas Tech. Oklahoma State no longer benefits from the shirtless mob that is in Boone Pickens Stadium. The spread is 33.5 for Texas Tech.
Lamb.
I agree.
With Texas Tech.
This is like feels like a 54-10 game.
I don't know. Will Hammond struggled a little, but it is a Texas Tech revenge game, I guess, after a loss. So
And it's Oklahoma State.
yeah, get right game for Texas. Yeah, I'll take that.
Love Oklahoma State fans though, man.
Baylor at Cincinnati. Cincinnati 4.5-point favorite.
I'm rooting for Baylor because of tiebreaker situations. Like we need Cincinnati to. I prefer to not have a five-way tie at the top of the Big 12 standings. So I'm rooting for Baylor, but I'm taking Cincinnati. Brendan Sorsby's a dog. Honestly, this is a sneaky. This might be like in terms of watchability. This is the most watchable game of the week because Baylor and Cincinnati cannot guard a soul, and these are the two best quarterbacks in the Big 12.
2 of the 3.
Dude, Baylor's defense.
That's correct.
Cincinnati's defense isn't great. Baylor's defense stinks. And I think Cincy takes this as well.
Give me Cincinnati as well, Joe. I get what you're saying, but doesn't matter if there's a tie for second place at the top of the Big 12 if BYU just goes undefeated. So
also true.
Still, I'm going to pick Cincinnati. This is the only game where the home team is an underdog in the Big 12 slate this week, and that is TCU 14.5-point favorites on the road in Morgantown against West Virginia.
Lay them with TCU. West Virginia is bad, right?
Yeah. TCU by 20.
Yeah, give me TCU.
Houston on the road facing the Leavitt Clan and Arizona State. ASU 7.5 points favorites over a sneaky good or paper tiger Houston team.
I think Houston's fraudulent, to be honest. Like I feel awful about that. I can't really explain why I think they're fraudulent. It's
6-1. Only losses to Texas Tech.
And I can't even use like the close wins argument because BYU also likes to win close. Really, I just don't believe in Connor Wegman. I have a really hard time believing in an offense that's led by Connor Wegman. I'm taking ASU. I think ASU is just really good. I've hated on ASU for a long time, and it's time for me to respect what they've done because they just keep winning football games. Except against Utah for whatever reason.
Give me Houston. I'll take Houston.
Okay.
I would welcome that because ASU is looking like they're going to be 8-1 this year, and I cannot live with myself if Kenny Dillingham is in the Big 12 championship again, unless we play them, in which case we're going to kick their butts.
What's the stat where? Remind me the name of the receiver for ASU?
Jordan Tyson.
That Arizona State has not lost a Big 12 game when both he and Sam Leavitt play.
Yeah.
I think that continues on Saturday. I agree with Joe. I think Houston's a bit of a paper tiger. Shocking 6-1. But yeah, I just think a 6-1 team isn't typically a touchdown plus underdog.
Who's Houston's best win?
Houston's best win is probably Colorado at home.
Who did I would say so. Who did they beat in the non-conference?
They beat Stephen F. Austin and Rice and Oregon State.
Oh, so they didn't really play a P4.
And then they played Colorado, Texas Tech, and lost. Oklahoma State, they won by 22, and then they just narrowly defeated Arizona.
Yeah, and at home too, lay them with.
Yeah, and an early game too. It was like a 10 a.m. kick. Now on to the premier rivalry in all of the Big 12. Some say the Rumble in the Rockies, coming off of an upset victory over Iowa State where they rushed the field, followed by a bye week. The Colorado Buffaloes take on the University of Utah. Utes are 13.5-point favorites at home.
Is Whittingham going to bench Dampier just to prove a point that he was hurt?
Yeah, is this like, and apparently now they're saying the backup is the real superstar, like he's going to be a Heisman winner. It's never, it's whoever is in the wings after a loss to BYU. That's who the
It's
actual good quarterback is at Utah. They just don't
it's
like to play
perpetually
their, they don't like
it's
to play their good quarterbacks against BYU, evidently. Uh,
they feel most comfortable with projection. It's always the preseason up there.
would that be the most Whittingham thing ever to like tank this game against Colorado by playing the freshman quarterback and claiming Dampier is hurt as a way to delegitimize BYU's win over them?
Well, for sure, he's going to come out next week and say that Colorado's the best team that they've played this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's goes without saying.
I'm taking Utah in this. I think Colorado is going to be able to score a little bit on them. Colorado is not going to be able to stop Utah's offense. Like Colorado's still cheeks in the run against the run.
Trevor.
Like I'll take Colorado to cover because I think 14.5 is a huge number.
13 and a half.
Sorry, 13.5 is a huge number, but I'm still probably taking Utah to win.
I'm taking Colorado because I don't like Utah.
That's fair.
I'm taking Colorado because we've seen what our season feels like it's over. Utah meltdown very recently, like last year recently. And I just, between losing to Texas Tech and BYU, what is Witt playing for now? I just don't know.
At this point, Witt is just waiting for Bear Bachmeyer to visit him in his nursing home
with his guitar.
Sing him, serenade him with a little country roads.
Like that's all Witt has to look forward to at this point.
Like, don't get me wrong. I think Utah is the better team, and pre Big 12 Rice Eccles Stadium was a tough place to play, but I just don't know if I've seen Utah lose heart before and it gets ugly. And Prime Dion has done a good job of keeping his boys in it despite some of the hardships that they've faced early. And I just think that's hard to overlook.
Breaking news. I will be watching The Cut this week.
Yeah.
Let's go. It's been 84 years.
Look, to close this out, what a time. Like, we opened the show with, what did you sit through to earn this? The reason I asked that question is because this program has come a long way in the last 6 years. Like, to think of where we were in 2019, just fighting for any kind of relevance, to now BYU is hosting Big Noon Kickoff, playing in prime time on Fox, have another ranked matchup this week on Fox. Like, the eyes of the nation are watching BYU, and BYU is living up to the moment. And they've been living up to the moment for the last 2 years. I don't know if BYU is entering a new glory years based off of what's been going on the last couple of years and where the recruiting classes are going and the way college football is going. I can only assume the answer is yes, but like, we need to enjoy the heck out of this right now. Like, no petty squabbling over margin of victory. Just enjoy the wins while we got them, guys, because it's really hard to do what BYU's done over the last 2.5 years. And it's a fantastic time to be a BYU fan.
Cougs by a billion, as always and forever.
And Kyle Whittingham is a loser.